Lord, may the words of my mouth and meditation of each and every one of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, for you are our strength and our redeemer. How many of us have said something in anger and then regretted it later? I was going to say, if you don't have your hand up, you're probably lying. In church to a pastor on a Sunday morning. Wow.
I don't get angry.
You don't get angry ever? Not even righteous anger?
Not even when you're
Not
a
even when
child.
we sign up for coffee? Maybe just a little. Yeah, the Bible says to be careful about anger. It also says to be careful about the tongue, because you can get mad and say something that you normally wouldn't say that would be totally out of characteristic for you. And the problem is that you say it. And you know the old saying, once you say it, you can't take it back. And so the memory of you saying those words lives on in the people who were bothered by it. And it can become a problem in relationships and in all different kinds of things. In reading the papers and looking at news coverage over the last week and before on the same issue that's been in the news, one of the things that I noticed in talking about situations and how things arise and all this kind of stuff was a description of how African American mothers have the talk with their kids, especially their boy kids. And the talk is basically, you know, if you're approached by a police officer, be very respectful, don't have your hands in your pocket. If you're wearing a hoodie, put the hood down. All these things to appear less menacing. Because this week there were a couple of young black men killed by police officers. And I mean, if you think about it, you know, that's been happening for a while. And a friend of mine, he was actually my mentor at the pastor when I first started. He was a teacher in an inner city school in Paterson, New Jersey. The school backed right up to a housing project, you know, one of those 40-story high places that you don't walk through because the gangs kind of rule. He was a teacher in that school. And he received a call to ministry and became a pastor. And we were talking one time, and we ended up becoming good friends. And we were talking one time, and there was this guy who was a member of the Bloomingdale Church, who was a police officer in Kenilworth, and he was a cop. He was a minister as well. And it said something, I said, yeah, his email address is Rev Cop. To my friend, that seemed very, very odd, to have the juxtaposition of clergy and police officers. And I said, that doesn't seem odd to me. He goes, yeah, but you got to understand something. I have a very different view of the police than you do having grown up in the suburbs. I was taught, something happens, you get lost, whatever, find a police officer. And the police officer will help you and they will, you know, bring you home or do whatever you need. His experience was that the cops who were, unfortunately when he was growing up, frequently white in an African American area, tended to treat people in a different way. And I mean, part of it's because of the environment. You're talking an environment where a good percentage of people are walking around with guns in their pockets. There is a general disrespect for law, there's gangs, there's all those kind of things. So the cops, understandably, are very, very nervous and very, very on edge when they're patrolling these areas. So when they're in that kind of mindset, they might act in ways that would not engender the idea that the police are your friends. And that is the reason that African American mothers have the talk with their sons, because things happen. Now, like I said, you know, who said something that they regretted later in anger? Everybody raised their hand. Imagine you are a young man wearing a hoodie, just like walking down the street to the store, and a cop pulls up and searches you and starts questioning you about what you're doing. I would get angry. If that happened, I'd get angry. I'm going to the store, man. No, what are you really doing? You know, that kind of thing. I would get angry. And I might respond in some way out of my aggravation, my anger. It was not a good way to respond. One of the interesting things of the news coverage that's been happening over the last couple of weeks is a number of, they would go to the protests. The news media always is drawn to those kind of things. They go to the protests, and they were talking to people. And I saw at least 4 either former or current police officers who were interviewed. And some of them were African American, some of them were white. And they all said that there are some of my fellow brothers in arms who are full of themselves. And they act in ways that are not appropriate, and things end up happening. And I could see how these things could have happened. It was interesting, we moved, after I became a pastor and we were part-time, we moved back to Northville, the town that I grew up in. I moved out of there when I was around, well, Tori and I got married when we were 23. And that was my home until we got married. And the interesting thing was that when I moved back, the kids I remember as the ones who used to beat people up and be bullies and all those kind of things, they were the cops in town. Yeah, that happens all over the place, doesn't it? Because they beat people up and they bully and stuff because they're into power. Now you give me a badge and you give me a gun and I got power. Now you push somebody like that, who's got that kind of attitude, and they get mad, who knows what's going to happen. You know, I talk about this because when I see someone getting arrested or shot or something like that for no cause, my initial reaction, again, because of the way I was raised about the cops, well, they must have done something wrong to provoke this. But in listening, especially to some of the police officers, I get a sense that something else is going on. And the fact that it's been going on so long, there's an uneven thing happening. And that provokes you and me to ask a question. It was the question that started the discussion about the parable of the Good Samaritan. Just who is our neighbor? Who is our neighbor? Jesus pointedly used the person who in the mind of his listeners was the farthest away from him. A Samaritan. One who knows what the law is and what God expects but doesn't do it. Kind of related but separate themselves and does things wrong. So they were really, really looked down on. And Jesus tells a story that forces his listener to say, yeah, that slime bucket person, that's my neighbor. So when we look at this parable and this story and the point that Jesus is making here, how do we answer that question, who is my neighbor? Now for most of us, we live in the suburbs. We live in a nice area. There's nice houses. We got the lake over here. A lot of people have boats. There's nice restaurants. Most of us have decent cars. We dress in decent clothes. We have enough food to eat. If we run out of food to eat, we can give Debbie a call, and Debbie will make sure that we have food to eat. Somebody living in an inner city where there isn't enough food to eat, where you have to have your children sleep in the bathtub so they don't get shot by stray bullets at night because of the gangs outside. Where you get hassled for walking down the street, that's a very, 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 very different person than you and I are. Awful lot of the experiences that folks who live in those conditions have, I can't relate to. I try, but I just can't. I wasn't raised that way. When my kids were growing up, I'd say, watch the Wonder Years. I was Kevin Arnold. The Vietnam War was on TV at dinner time. There was one TV in the house. You sat here, Dad worked, Mom was... that was my life. The guy across the street had been drafted to go to Vietnam. He ended up coming in at it, climbing up a high-tension tower and frying himself. Kevin Arnold's life was my life, and that's how I tell my kids. If you notice in the Wonder Years, the ethnic diversity is Italian and Irish and German. Right? When I was a kid, I was about 10 years old, I went to Camp Lebanon. Camp Lebanon was the Baptist version of Camp Aldersgate. We had cabins rather than bogans, but it was basically the same thing. And I remember, I don't know if it was about first year, my second year, there was an African-American kid in my cabin. And we're talking, and Heffner opened his hand. I said, wait a minute, let me see that. See what? Your hand. The lines were brown. It was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life. I'd never seen it before. It was totally, totally different to me. One of God's passions is for justice. You see it over and over again in the Lord. Paul writes about, what is true faith? Taking care of widows and orphans in their distress. Why? There was no welfare system. There were no food pantries. There was none of the social safety net that we have today, however good or bad it is. It didn't exist. And so Paul, at God's direction, called attention to those who were disadvantaged because of something. And he said that we are to take care of them. So that is a justice issue. God's passion is for justice. And we saw a couple more young black men killed by police this week. And then we saw reactions in demonstrations. Some of the demonstrations were Black Lives Matter demonstrations. My reaction to that is, well, yeah, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. But if you say that to someone, they get upset. And the reason they get upset is because the way in which black lives are treated is not the same. And it needs to have attention brought to it. And after reading a bunch about that, I can see the point. Like I said, it's very far from me. It's not my experience. It's not how I grew up. It's not what I knew. But if not being able to get a job, because I sense that it's because they don't want to hire someone with my skin color. Or if I go into a store and wander around looking, and I go in with my white friend, and my white friend's walking around over there, and I'm walking around over here, the man is following me, he's not following my white friend. That happens every single time I go into a store. There's something out of whack there. Those protests sparked behavior among a guy who was apparently unbalanced in Detroit. Took a rifle and killed a number of policemen. Interesting. A lot of people ended up hugging cops after that. All of this stuff that happened, that we're hearing about in the news, that some of us have stopped listening to the news over, is as a result of injustice. As followers of Christ, we're called to seek justice, do mercy, and walk humbly with your God. Right? I don't know what the answer to this thing is. Is it laws? Is it enforcing the laws? Is it oversight? Yes. Yeah, it's all these things. But I think it starts with a change in attitude, rather than saying, yeah, I heard some black guy got shot in Harlem the other day, but I don't live there and I don't know, it's not my problem. Changing from that to, you know what, something's wrong here and something should be done. Somebody should say something and maybe I'll write a letter to the editor. Whatever it is. That at a minimum, we need to pray. And Bishop said in one of his letters regarding the situations that are going on between the floods and the shootings and stuff, that prayer requires action. The Church of Jesus Christ has been at its best when it's taken action. It was interesting in one of those Black Lives Matter protests, saw a photo on CNN or some other news venue. A couple of white people in the background as part of the program. If you look at pictures of the civil rights marches, Martin Luther King and others that happened around that time, you see an awful lot of white folks mixed in there. Why should they be there? You know, they can vote. They can walk into places. They can go to whatever bathroom they want. They don't care. It's not just for blacks only bathroom. It's not their issue. Why are they there? Because it is a justice issue and a servants of Jesus Christ. We are called to advocate for our neighbor. Even when, and maybe especially when our neighbor doesn't look like it. What Jesus says. If we are little Christs, that's what the word Christian means. We need to do the same thing. So pray. Pray for those who are affected on both sides. And pray to see what God would have you do. Let's pray. Lord God, our hearts break over the division that we see in our society, the people who are hurt, the mothers who've lost sons, the brothers and sisters who've lost their brothers, the families who've lost their fathers, just for the loss, Lord God. The real tragedy, God, is that this happens so often that we don't really even pay all that much attention to it anymore. God, forgive us for that. Cure us of a self-centeredness that robs us of compassion and robs us of a passion for justice. Help us to be the spark that ignites a fire of yearning for justice, working for peace, and being what you would have us to be. Lord God, as we hear about all these kind of things that happen, we have concerns for those folks who are affected and also for the people in our lives. And so coming before you this morning, we raise their names. For all who are suffering about all different kinds of things, that they might find peace in you. For all those who are affected by the civil unrest in our nation, Lord, in your mercy,